Hi, welcome to episode 96, and we're talking about science fiction film Killer Klowns from Outer Space, which came out in 1988.
Hi, and welcome to Spacebrains, the show where we watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what is great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya, it's episode 96, and we're talking about science fiction film Killer Klowns from Outer Space, which came out in 1988. In this episode, we'll reveal what we thought about the film, the ins and outs of narrative and a bit of film language, plus a deep dive into a specific piece of science that the filmmakers are proposing. Killer Klowns from Outer Space was written by Charles Chiodo and Stephen Chiodo, with Stephen Chiodo directing.
Yeah, so turn back now. This is your spoiler warning. Warning. We're not going to give you
honk.
any other chance. Go back and watch the film and then tune in and listen to us talk about it.
Because we're going to the circus, folks. Killer Klowns. And this film is about a clan of evil aliens who happen to resemble clowns arrive on Earth and invade a small town in order to capture, kill, and harvest the human inhabitants to use as sustenance. If I can say the word. Well, they eat them. That's what they want to do. They want to eat them. They want to turn them into fairy floss egg globes and then drink them.
It's unclear what they turn into, but they drink them with a crazy-ass straw.
Yeah.
Because they are clowns.
I'll come back to that in a minute. What was your number one takeaway from Killer Klowns from Outer Space, Surrey?
My number one takeaway from Killer Klowns from Outer Space is that sometimes you want Kiss to play your soundtrack, but you can only afford Kliss.
The good old band Kliss, eh?
The band that kind of sounds a bit like Kiss, but is a bit watered down.
Right.
And Kiss is not that hardcore these days anyway.
Good filmmaker tip, that. When you can't afford Kiss, go to Kliss.
What I'm surprised with, though, in films these days is, a good soundtrack can really change a film.
Of course.
In fact, you can even have like a film that's not tremendously good, but if it's got a fantastic soundtrack, people will watch it just to sort of see and hear the soundtrack. Hans Zimmer.
Don't we love a bit of Hans?
Why not, as these people do, you go, you know what, I really like the sound of... Who's big these days? I don't know.
Billie Eilish is really big.
Billy Idol? Did you say Billy Idol?
Red Hot Chili Peppers. Apparently they're a new thing on the block. They played the Perth Optus Stadium thingy recently.
Kids on the block.
New Kids on the Block. Are they still a band? Post Malone,
who got kicked out of a pub for wearing thongs or something. I don't know.
These are just acts that recently came to our city.
Recently came to Australia as well. Yeah. But why not get yourself, you go, we really want an AC/DC soundtrack.
Yeah.
But that would cost a fair bit of money.
Yeah.
So what we're going to get is, CDCA, who produce riff-driven guitar rock similar.
And they don't have a contract with any record labels.
Don't have a contract with record labels.
And they're not on Apple iTunes anymore.
But usually the way it goes, I think, is... a film will either get the big name, they'll get John Williamson in, or they'll get Queen to do the soundtrack or something like that, or they'll just or
Elvis.
Yeah, they'll get elevator music. They'll get sort of generic orchestral sounding music that I'm sure I've heard in other films.
Yeah.
Why? Like it surprised me. Why not do that third choice of it's still cheap because you get an unsigned band who. They're going to love being on a soundtrack.
Yeah.
And, just have it sound like some rockin' band and go for it.
When I studied film, when I studied film at uni, the tip was to kind of connect with local bands that, again, they don't have record labels or they don't have contracts. And so you kind of maybe do some sort of exchange, like you get to use their music. There's a promotional opportunity for them. Maybe in return you might shoot them a video clip or they're hopeful to get some sort of promotion out of the fact that your movie may do, good out there. So instead of, as you said, Kiss, but this local band kind of, they do play hard rock music, good riffs, not quite Kiss, but, you know, it's on the way to it. But I don't need to pay any money for it, you know, because quite often to get a song in a movie, it's around in Australian dollars like $5,000 to $10,000 for a song. So yeah, if your budget's super tight, student independent, you're not really going to waste 5 to 10 grand on that. You don't have that. But
not when you've got popcorn to buy or candy cap floss, yeah.
But my suggestion, like in my experience, is like there's lots of composers. So mentioned Hans Zimmer before, you know, being at the top of the composing food chain, is there's also just as many composers who can construct music for a film specifically. And maybe a scene does need some hard rock, but, you know, it probably doesn't need that throughout a whole film because emotionally that would be weird. But there's plenty of composers that are also like the filmmakers, writers starting out. So you are better to connect to some of them and actually create that relationship rather than getting Kliss and just getting a song of Kliss, this album, and sticking it into this scene.
I was born for laughing with you, baby.
That's right, yeah.
Their famous Kliss number 10 song, you know.
10, yes, that's right.
reached the top of the charts shortly after this film, and then
that's right.
Yeah, that was I don't know, be good if it was. Anyway, I find it interesting. There isn't more sort of a collaboration between, you know, bands, because as you said, composers. Yeah, like I mean, you see this guy Bear Creary. He's really picking up his game.
Okay.
Because he's done I think he did the Witcher soundtrack. Okay. He's also done like, now I want a whole bunch of TV shows, but then also a bunch of movies and stuff. I should have looked him up before the episode, but I wasn't going to talk about Bear. But, you know, he obviously was just a music composer in, you know, probably dealing with industry, music, video is what I'm trying to say, industry. But yeah, now he's come along, and his name, if you keep an eye out on credits for a lot of TV shows and movies, ranging from orchestrally type stuff to electronic to rock pop sort of sounding stuff. Yeah, right. He's got quite a bit of range there. But I am surprised, that like, you know, you wouldn't try and emulate, because you're not trying to, you know, with the orchestral guys, you know, you're trying to pick up on someone who'll have like a thematic score and all that sort of. I'm sort of more talking about, you want AC/DC.
You want,
So you get something that sounds a lot like AC/DC, but doesn't have the price tag.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not going to be, probably not going to be a long-term relationship, but, you know, I'm biased, so I like guitar-driven, riff-heavy music, so...
It's a funny one, because I think when I started, like, again, when I went to uni, you kind of are like, I'm going to make a movie, and in it, I'm going to put my favourite music.
Yes.
You know, because that's how you think about it. But then probably as I've gotten a bit older and the more I've gotten into writing and then even seeing other filmmakers, you go, oh, hang on, a song, like my favourite song, or a song I really like, or an artist I really like, that does not match the movie that I would like to make, or the story I'm telling. No, I've got to have eerie violins, and
I think the other
I've got to have, like, you know, or I've got to have a real electronic beat to it, you know. But then, of course, you do get those filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino is a great example that, you know, he uses a song which is also for a deliberate effect in that scene. You know, and that classic example is that Stuck in the Middle of You from Reservoir Dogs, that, you know, while Michael Mann cuts the guy's ear off, he's singing that song to him, you know. And so it's not just the song's a cool song, it's also that, well, it really symbolically works for the scene.
That's what you got to consider, is if you're making film and you want to include some cool songs, the two have to go together. Like if people are going to hear a song, because there's lots of movies where you don't even hear it. You don't even know there was music. You assume there must be, but God knows what it is. But then there are other ones where there's a real strong connection, like The Crow, the movie. Yeah. The Crow itself as a movie, I've watched it a few times. It's fine.
Yeah.
But the music is what makes it. If they didn't have that soundtrack, it would just be it would be a fine film.
Yeah,
be okay. Sure.
Yeah,
but throw in that soundtrack and have a couple of moody sort of bits where the Crow's sitting around with, you know, Machines of Ever Loving Grace or whatever, who they are, playing their song, and a bit of Stone Temple Pilots thrown in, you've suddenly got a really great. It's almost like a music video clip.
Yeah.
But it's actually an interesting movie too.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't think you can just sort of casually chuck these things in. But I don't know. I kind of liked some of the music that they used in this film.
Yeah.
It struck out to me as like I said, it's like they really wanted to have a recognizable riff and a hard thing going on, like Kiss. It's sort of the music was reminiscent, but it backed off from that a little bit.
Yes.
Didn't quite get there.
Didn't have the budget, I reckon.
Yeah, well, I mean, after all the clown outfits.
Dear Kiss, can we have your song in Killer Klowns From Outer Space?
It can't be worse than Kiss meet the Phantom of the Park.
That's right.
If you've ever seen that film, there's a great YouTube guy who's going through redoing the scenes, updating the special effects and changing some of the cutting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, cool.
He's just an amateur too. He's not a professional, but his changes are pretty good. That's he sort of updates some of the bits and pieces, the explosions and things. Yeah,
awesome.
So tell me though, how many times have you seen this film now?
This is the first time, but the reason why I deliberately wanted to watch this when it popped up on the streaming service thing was I remember as a kid seeing this as a VHS, in the sci-fi horror kind of section, but just never got to watch it for some weird-ass reason because I did watch so many of these types of films. And again, once I started watching it, you could see that structure of the story roll out really obviously. And so I was interested watching this going, okay, well, how's that going to play out? What do they do here that's a little bit different? And why is this, such a film that people come back to? But yeah, it was my first time, total first time. And I just watched it by myself on the laptop, and yeah, it was an enjoyable experience. It's a quick film, and it's definitely, I think, fits into that 80s genre of sort of low budget horror, B grade sort of horror sci-fi films that were around, maybe a little bit like Critters and those.
Oh, it had a very Critters Troll,
just Troll, yeah,
and
what's the one where they all come out of the earth? It's
one of
the ones where they they dig up out of the earth little creature things.
And that basket case was one of them as well.
Yeah,
where there's like just a monster in a basket that was and Leprechaun and
the Leprechaun's another one actually. Yeah, so those sort of ones, I think it fits in well. You and I have gone to the Little Planet Sci-Fi Film Festival. I think actually if I was to sit down or suggest to people to watch this film, it'd be great to watch it probably communally, with a group of people. There's some real laugh out loud moments, and there's some sort of moments of like, I think they're cheesy now because it's 30 plus years later, and the special effects are a little bit different. And yeah, there is a couple of moments that are a little bit cringy. You and I have also gone to that Black Maria Collective, and we saw a film that night like that.
Night Beast or
Night Beast, yeah. And so, yeah, just seeing those kind of things where there's some scenes that I think have dated a fair bit, and so it'd be better to maybe watch them in a room full of people, where you're just kind of snacking and eating and talking and
I think you probably
enjoy yourself.
You probably do need like another film from that time, as you said. Things like Porky's, I think you mentioned before we started recording. It's similar sort of Porky's or Animal House.
Animal House is another one.
Like Troll or Leprechaun or Critters or...
I'm the Leprechaun.
Ghoulies.
Ghoulies. Ghoulies. That was the one I was thinking of. Yeah. So I think if you went and watched a bunch of those movies, this one just slots right in. And it was one that when it popped up, I thought, hey, I never saw that, but it was at the video shop, and yes, I'm old enough for VHS. And
I'm in the same boat. I
remember the cover,
I remember that cover as well, and the creepy clown face, big grin, and I remember sort of seeing that along with these other films as we mentioned. And there's a few of them like the Howling and Wolfen and Chud and a few of these films that I sort of would see and would move on. Like Toxic Avenger would be in there.
Toxic Avenger,
I'd see these films and I'd kind of not quite get them. They just didn't quite. I don't know. I was either concerned about watching them or at the time I was looking for something different.
Yeah. And so this was the first time you saw this?
First time I saw it. So I was pleased to be able to finally watch this film, watch one of these films, this sort of 80s, schlock.
Yes.
It was good.
Did you have a scene that stuck out to you at all?
Yeah, I did. There's a couple there. When there's actually several, but one of them that I quite liked was the police car. They're driving along and they see the clown doing the shadow puppets.
Yeah.
And the shadow puppet comes in,
pretty cool.
eats all the people.
Yeah.
And so the guy slams on the accelerator to ram the clown.
Yeah.
And of course, it doesn't really it just kind of bumps in the wall. It turns out they rented all these cars, and so they didn't want to damage them.
Yeah.
So they actually lost one of the cars by accident off a bridge. So that was a bit of a shame. It was just supposed to roll, but it went all the way off.
Yeah.
But he bumps in, and then the clown jumps up out of the way, and the guy jumps out of the car and looks up and goes, "He just left. He just went straight up." The delivery
With
of
that exact delivery.
Yeah, that delivery that he did was just, it was spot on for one of those, sort of cornball cult, sort of lines.
Yes.
It was, it struck, I actually laughed out loud just because he said that in that way.
Yeah.
And there are other ones, again, where these clowns are doing various funny things. And
Yeah.
not because the things they were doing was funny, but the delivery of it and the fact that they even included it in a movie.
Yes.
was funny.
I think there's always that, like, there's funny moments in these types of 80s films because of the time difference. And I do wonder, like, if you'd seen this at the movies when it came out in the dark and maybe you're a teenager or something, like, you might have been totally spooked because it is just, there's a bit of a time lag here, isn't there? There's a bit of a special effects lag on a low budget 80s film.
And those clown heads, they looked really good. Like,
the clown heads are great, yeah.
Chiodo Brothers, who did this, their main gig is doing
VFX
and stop motion and claymation and rubber suits and stuff. That's their bag.
And definitely that's the strength of this. Yeah, as you said, the clown faces are very animated. The teeth, there's drool, there's a lot of motion and a movement in their faces.
Wrinkles and creases.
And there's also a lot of different. There's a lot of different clown faces. It wasn't just one. So they've gone to that effort of rinse and repeat in different looks. There's different sized clowns. But yeah, there was a couple in particular that there's a real attention to detail in the face and how the face moved, because that's always a thing. Like, it's one thing to have like a mask, but then to actually have the mask move.
The way they grinned and waggled their eyes and opened and closed their mouths and things.
Yeah. It was awesome. Quite definitely. Special. Yeah, and that's something to look back on. But I do wonder, like, that time lag difference, technology, camera shots, how that always plays out, and whether a film survives the time lag. But I do think, if we watch this at that little Planet Sci-Fi Festival, I think there'd just be that communal experience, So I think if you had the chance to watch this, if I had a chance to watch it again, it would be in a group of people, I think, and and nibbles and talking and just enjoying
I think that's
those
the idea of it being a teen movie. Is it is supposed to be like on a VHS. You rent it out at a party or something.
At a party, whatever.
Or you've all gone to the cinema and you just need something to watch, so you watch something like this.
Just for the fun of it. Yep.
So a big question though, how sci-fi was it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the clowns were not clowns as we know them. They were aliens.
Aliens, yeah.
There wasn't an alien spaceship that landed. They then were doing experiments, some sort of experiment on the humans.
Something.
They would turn them into these fairy floss eggs. Reminded me a lot of, like, Mimic, I think is the movie from the 90s, how the alien creature kind of turns the humans into eggs and then they're using something with the eggs. I'm pretty sure that's Mimic.
No, Mimic's the cockroach one.
That's the cockroach one.
The other one with the...
Which one am I thinking of? There is one where
there's a sexy woman scene and then she turns into a big monster.
Which one is that?
Oh, my goodness. It's like Mimic. It's more like someone's going to have to...
Yeah, we need someone to call in, don't we?
Call in and help
we
us
need
out.
to dial a friend. But there is one. I remember there's one that's eggs. And I mean, you and I both said straight away, well, this film is kind of narratively like The Blob. And I think that's the thing. You go back to The Blob, which we've done previously. an alien lands in a small town and kind of infects the town and takes over the town. And Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that's the other one that we've already done as well. And, so that's a similar thing, like, that this alien lands and then starts to spread throughout the town. So, I mean, how sci-fi is it? It is sci-fi to that point, right? Like, if you take out them, they could be clowns. They could be human clowns that are sacrificing humans, I guess, and then that would be just a horror.
Yeah, I think that one of the key points here is towards the end, they're kind of speculating on what
Why?
they are
Yeah.
and what they're doing and why. And I like one of the guys, I think one of the Terenzi brothers, he says, oh, well, maybe they're like ancient astronauts.
Yeah.
And this is how we got the concept of clowns.
Yes.
Was that like a recreation of these guys stop in every now and then. And like,
So it's in our human
it's like
psyche.
it's been imprinted and it's like a recreation we do.
Yeah.
And we've misunderstood the clowns, we're dealing with it through humor, but in fact it's not. And I quite like that. And I think that brings home a bit of that science fiction element there, where it's kind of like, it's not just some random, like it could have just been random, like you said, psychopaths dressed as clowns. They're like Scream.
Yeah.
Except it wasn't.
No.
It introduces this idea of linking our psychology and our human existence through to, well, aliens arriving, which is a thought experiment that people put in. Is like, humans sort of arose, came to sentience relatively fast. I mean, dinosaurs were around for 150 odd million years, and as far as we know, they never became sentient or capable of technology.
And I mean, the idea of a clown, like, as far as I know, people have these kind of horrifying ideas of clowns, but then also I see like a clown has probably evolved from that traditional courtyard jester, who was there to entertain the royal family in times of seriousness, to kind of break up the seriousness. But there is, that's that version of it. But then you do think kings and queens used to like behead people in public,
Yes,
and that was the entertainment for the crowd. And so then the jester would come out, and you do think, well, imagine what that clown would be like.
Yeah, it would be
that's not the clown.
More serious sort of clowning going on there.
That's not the clown that is, that would maybe come to a kid's party, or Ronald McDonald clown. Like that's a kind of clown entertaining a different audience, isn't it?
Yeah, you're picking up a severed head and playing with it. The mouth, making it like talk.
Yeah, that's right.
You will make a dummy out of me.
That's right. So how much, and then also the concept of maybe the jester just being the butt of everyone's joke. So it's kind of like, were they really almost like a prisoner? And so, there's a lot to read into it. I'm sure there's thesis statements out there about them.
Yeah, I mean, if you've written your PhD doctorate
About
on jesters,
the history of gestures,
then please, by all means,
send
get
it
in
our
touch.
way. Yeah. So, I think there's enough sci-fi in this film.
I think so. It is basically science fiction. It does explore some concepts in a lighthearted way, about what we perceive as one thing, but it's another. Like we see these things as clowns, but it's just coincidental, or is this historical? And I kind of like that they didn't dwell too much on that, because it isn't meant to be a particularly serious film.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the question of warning, hope, or experiment.
This is just warning, I reckon.
Yep.
This is just a pure warning, this film.
Fear of the other.
Yeah, fear of the unknown, the alien that comes down. And as you said, that scene where they do sort of debate, why are they here? The police officer says a really good line in that conversation, which is, oh, well, why don't they just talk to us? If they were here to kind of...
Yeah, they're intelligent.
Like, they're obviously intelligent. Why wouldn't they actually want to talk to us? And that is not explored in the film. Again, the film is not really that serious. But, that's the thing. So any alien that comes here, Independence Day is a good example. So it's just come here to destroy. Like there's no negotiation. They're coming here to use a resource, right? And we're in their way. Or we are the resource.
Or we are the resource for some reason.
Yeah.
They just don't have farms of their own or whatever. But
which is great. Matrix, we are the resource, right? For the AI, we're the battery. Here, we're the sustenance. Don't know why I can't say that word right now, but I can't. We are the food. So it's the same idea.
That's the other idea floated here, is that they're just on their way through somewhere else, and they stopped in for a snack.
We need to eat some food, fill up the cupboard, because it does seem like they're filling up the pantry, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're just going to muck about a bit. And, take some stuff. Why not? Bit
We're
of fun.
harmless. Like they've got the weaponry and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a bit of fun. So how about what are we getting up to these days? Science fiction wise, movie wise, creatively.
Well, for me, yeah, I'm in a real writing phase. So I've sort of said last episode of planning out a low budget feature, and yeah, I've been spending a good couple of hours each week actually sitting down to plan that. Also, probably want to do a short film during this year, so that's also part of the process. So yeah, more's going to start happening. It's sort of You're building a house at the moment. I'm laying those foundations. So it's like, okay, these are my ideas. Which idea am I going to pick? Which one's got a bit more legs, or which one am I more interested in? Does that kind of match my theme? So I feel like I've kind of done that now for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and now I'm ready to start, digging a lot deeper and scratching and filling out those scenes that you start to get. So I'm hopeful to document a bit of that as well. Like I want to kind of video myself doing a bit of that this time round as well. So just to kind of go through the actual process of it, because I am thinking with the feature film, it's just going to be low budget. So like these guys, I won't be having Kiss in it. I'll be having Kliss. I have to give them a phone call.
Yep, give them a phone
call. Another gig after all these years. Get the band back together. Kliss. I'm in the writing phase, which is exciting. I like the writing phase.
That is pretty cool.
How about yourself?
I'm doing my writing. Of course, I've got that book that I've gone through chapter by chapter. I've worked out all the things. I've noticed there's some good bits that I think that's actually really kind of cool and very interesting. Bits where I was reading the chapter, and it wasn't until I sort of got to the end that I remembered I was supposed to be taking notes to figure out what's going on. I went, actually that's a good chapter.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
at the same time, I've started reading a Peter Hamilton science fiction, and just sort of paying attention to the way that book is structured, because there's always something good to learn from these things. But the other thing I've been working on is getting a new business up and running for my son. So where I'm teaching him how to make websites, because he needs something for when he drops out of high school.
Yep.
And, hitchhikes his way around Australia and gets kidnapped by...
aliens. Killer clowns.
Yeah, aliens out somewhere near Karratha, and is held, captive, and he has to escape and save the world.
Websites can save him.
He could help. I don't know. I'm not sure how websites can help him. To tell you the truth, I should probably teach him survival skills like, hunting and cooking, fighting aliens.
Yeah, that's right.
But we'll start with websites.
Yeah.
So that'll be exciting. And then we have, of course, our film festival.
We do.
We've got a couple of progressions. Is that the right?
I think it is.
Progress reports.
We're very close.
So we've got contract back from Mr. Stephen Dedman. He's an award-winning writer.
Yep.
He works also at the local Murdoch University as a writing tutor.
Yep.
And he's recently written an anthology series that includes, I think it's called, I'll have to look at what it's called, doing proper justice, but it's got a number of short stories in there which are to do with alternate worlds, perceptions of reality, and so forth.
Yeah, so sci-fi, published sci-fi author.
Yes, so he will be coming along to do a workshop. It'll be a 2-hour hands-on. You'll be doing some writing exercises. This is actually going to get your brains thinking creatively, and a chance to do a bit of writing with someone who knows a thing or two about writing and how to teach it and how to do it.
Cool.
And what about, have we got confirmation of our filmmaker yet?
We don't have a contract signed, so we probably should not say it yet.
But
we'll be on the conservative side. Just
we're in the contract negotiation.
99% there, I'd say.
Which is pretty good, because you wouldn't bother negotiating the contract unless you're intending to sign it. Otherwise you're wasting everyone's time.
We've had a verbal yes, or an email yes, but we haven't had the contract.
Yeah,
I think by the time we get to the next episode, we'll be able to announce who our filmmaker is. Yeah,
and that'll be cool, because then we've got venues, we've got workshops, and we've got a filmmaker to lead us in,
and we've got films coming in, which is fabulous.
Films coming in, they're still coming in. So that's pretty good.
If you've still got time to submit
Yeah,
your
we've got some
film,
late
but hopefully
deadlines.
you're in the editing stage and looking at getting Cliss on board
Yes.
to do your soundtrack. If you're at that stage, get the crack weapon and get the music into it and get submitting, because we are in the late deadline phase, and then I think there's one final super late
death knock phase.
Please, lecturer, can I have an extension phase? There's no extensions beyond that one, but there is that last couple of week deadline thing. Will cost you a couple extra bucks. So come on, get it in, save yourself a bit of money.
Because we've got to watch all these films.
Yes, we do. And we're happy to do that and get in touch with you and have a little chat about your films as well. But if you're on that finish line, get it done. I did see a local filmmaker tag us. He's a guy that's made a feature film before, not sci-fi for the feature, but he's made a short sci-fi, and I saw he tagged Spacebrains, so saying that he's all wrapped and it's edited and it's in the can. So I don't know if he's submitted it or not, but I saw that. I was like, oh, that's exciting. So, yeah, if you're out there anywhere, locally, nationally, internationally, get your film in.
Get it in.
Get it in now.
Get it in.
All right, let's move into Act 2 of the podcast and start talking about the film. We'll just go through some narrative, some of the key film language, things that stood out to us. I think this one, costume, like we were talking about before, is important. Also some connection to other films. And then we'll get into some more details about the narrative and other parts of it and the science behind it in Act 3 of the podcast. So for some details about Killer Klowns from Outer Space, as we mentioned before, Charles Chiodo and Stephen Chiodo wrote this film. Stephen also directing. They produced it. It's a low-budget, kind of independent film. They have had numerous kind of suggestion, whispers, internet threads about sequels that have just never been actually made.
A TV series.
I do think that this could make a very good Netflix or streaming platform TV show if you really thought about it and like really investigated what these killer clowns, their origin, and where they came
some
from.
Good, comedic writers in as well.
I think, that's the question, isn't it? It's like, would you make it maybe a little bit more serious and then just have some beats?
Sam Raimi in from the Evil Dead series?
Yeah, that would be an interesting one, wouldn't it? So, yeah, and just, I think like we were talking about before, if the whole premise is that they're aliens that have come to here and this is why we have clowns, there's a big story arc in that, isn't there?
You could have the clowns turning up in medieval times.
That's
Everyone
right.
would love to see that, where they turn the
you could talk about their origins, right? Like this is the whole thing. So I think there would be potential there for a TV show. So maybe just a limited series, like a one-off series thing. But that'd be cool. Who should play the killer clown? That would also be the other thing. Is could we get
Skarsgård?
Yeah.
There's a lot to choose from.
Yes.
I mean, who was it? Was it Alexander did it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's already done a clown.
Yeah.
So you'd have to get one of the other 7 Skarsgård brothers who are all absolutely killing it these days.
Yes. It stars Grant Cramer, Suzanne Snyder, John Allen Nelson, Roy O'Donnell, and John Vernon, John Vernon, you look him up and he's got a resume that goes on and on and on. He's all sorts of TV, all sorts of stuff, right? But I don't know what it was about this guy and his voice, and I've heard it in something is his voice, and I just couldn't nail it down when I watched this.
He is the dean in Animal House.
Yeah.
He was the mayor in... Oh, gosh, it's just suddenly slipped away.
He's kind of like in everything, and he's been a cop, and he's been, as you said, like the mayor and the principal, and it's all sorts of stuff. Like it goes on and on and on in IMDb, but I couldn't nail exactly where the voice was in my head, but it's from some other movie or TV show, and but he was great. How great was he? I loved him.
He was fantastic. He was not going to be tricked by all these kids, but
the way he delivered a line it's the actor's subtext. There's something behind his line that doesn't really exist,
He was probably a slightly stronger actor at this time.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of these guys went on to do a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
Like some of them, quite well-known films, like not major parts. But so I don't doubt they went on. But you could tell that old Jono there, he had some chops
actor,
right there.
Yeah. Now, it was filmed in the United States, just locally. As you were talking about before, rented. I saw it was on the Santa Barbara Pier. Were some of the scenes, I think probably the clown house and stuff like that, the amusement park. So it was real low budget stuff. Budget came in at 1.8 mil, and the box office turned massive, 43 million. So this must have been a real big smash hit at the time.
I think as you said,
huge.
If we're putting it in the context of those things like Troll and Critters, and then because they were kind of getting a little bit more and more ridiculous as they went along, and there was like. There's that Santa Claus one and Leprechaun and then there's this one about killer clowns. I think people were getting a bit hyped up for this idea of these sort of rubber monsters killing people for almost no reason at all.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be much reason for it.
Didn't really need much of an actual reason behind them coming here or anything. It was just like, we just want to see this ridiculousness.
I think they got the timing of when to release this film right.
I think so.
And a lot of people must have gone, because I've laughed. I actually laughed a couple of times in this. Cause
it made me laugh.
Sometimes I laughed because it was just so dumb or ridiculous. Like the killer
Still
clowns for crying out loud.
Yeah.
But I laughed, or maybe it was something that didn't age very well, or actual like. The comedy of it, the pie scene at the end with the security guard getting pied to death. He's facing off against these clowns and he says, "Hey, what are you guys going to do with those pies?"
That's right. And the thing is,
of course, you know exactly what they're going to do with those pies. It's just, and then they do it, and it's too much. It's too ridiculous.
Yes,
but. Yeah, it's great.
It'd be interesting to speak to the Chiodo Brothers about that, because it's kind of like, even that scene's a perfect example. It's like, well, a clown does a pie in the face and it's kind of supposed to be funny, but then a pie in the face can be a bit mean. And then 100 pies from mystical alien clowns, well, it's deadly. You die from that. So, it's kind of it's not slapstick, this movie, but it's that sort of borderline between how ridiculousness is it and how actually creepy is it.
I would like to ask these guys, was there anything that was going too far and they decided not to put it in?
Is there anything?
Was anything too silly? Like this one, no, that's going a little bit too ridiculous.
Because even the balloon dog, right? The balloon dog, right? It's a cool idea, that balloon dog, right? It's a dog. It's an alien dog. It's but it's a balloon dog, right? So even that in its own is ridiculousness, but I don't know, they're aliens. There's a bit of mystic power science going on there.
I know. A balloon dog that way. That cracked me up. Because he's sitting there tying a balloon animal and you're like, what is this about? And then it starts barking, it runs out and it bends its nose down and sniffs and you're just going, at what point do you guys go, nah, that's too silly.
That's too much.
And they've got a gun that shoots popcorn.
Yeah.
Really? You're really going to have a gun that shoots popcorn?
But then the popcorn are little creature things, and I liked that. I thought that was kind of I thought that was kind of cool, that those, when she hopped out of the bath and they're kind of just stretching, you know what I mean, across the floor. I was well, that's actually creepy. That is creepy.
It also does explain why circuses always sell popcorn, but nobody wants to eat it.
Yeah, because they're just bugs.
Although it sort of reminded me a bit of that Futurama episode where they get those little, they look like little shrimp bites.
Yes.
They call them poplars or something. Yeah. It was like that, or tasticles. Yeah. Because that's it. And they're actually the larvae of the aliens.
Yeah.
It's just, but everyone kept eating them. Yes.
So we do like to break narrative down into a 3-act structure. Good storytelling, good scripts, good stories themselves tend to fit into these 3-act structures. So we have a beginning, we have a middle, we have an end. This is all based on some of the big writing teachers out there, Campbell, Snyder, McPhee, Field. But hey, go look at a book, go rent a movie, and see if you can notice 3 big moments in the film: the first act, the second act, and the third act. Surrey, what happens in the first act? Now, let's take a bit of inspiration from this film and say we have a washed-up clown that can't get a gig. So he's trying for his dream is to be, the world's most famous clown. Of course, clowns are on the nose. We've had it. We've had these type of movies.
We've had Joker.
We've had the Joker. It's not really cool to be a clown. Like what kids really want to be a clown? People are moving more away from the fast food generation of things like McDonald's as well.
And this is what Act 1 has got to do. It's got to establish the fact that we're in a world where being a clown, like this guy wants to be a circus clown, like not just a stand-up comedian. Yeah. He actually wants to be wearing a costume, doing sort of funny prank type stuff, squirting people in the face with salts or water.
So I'm just going to chuck in there as well as a bit of a rule. This is not the Joker, so it's not. I don't want it to be as dark as the Joker.
No, it's
you know
not
what I mean?
the
So
Joker.
this is the thing. This is more of a coming of age story.
But this is we have to have the introduction to the world.
Yeah,
so the world shows this guy. He's
trying
studying
to be an entertainer.
clown school or something or other. But there's sort of the study he's in. The lecturer is more talking about the irony of the clown, and the other comedians that they're looking at the history of it. But you can see he's sort of drawing face makeup ideas,
water spouting out of flowers,
with other and little like sort of prank joke things. Like here's a trick bow tie. He's kind of designing, doodling, while everyone else is coming up with
elaborate
sort of
magic.
Political styled monologues that they're going to introduce things with. And so we get this sort of introduction, and he meets his his best friend as they're coming out. And the best friend is like, no, I'm dropping out. I'm going to go get a real job. Yeah. There's no future in clowning. No. Maybe some of the stand-up comedians might be able to just scrape by, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And they head off. So this is the introduction. It's the world. We get to some of these characters, but we have to have an inciting incident. We've got to have something because at the moment we don't know what the show's about. No. This story. Where is it headed? Why is it going? Let's just say that the guy, he in his disappointment in what his friend said, he's stumbling home from having watched what used to be one of his heroes, clowns, but just you're getting booed off stage. And so he's walking home feeling a bit dejected. He goes into an alleyway to sort of, dodge a crowd of people coming past because he's wearing a clown T-shirt, isn't he? He doesn't want to be associated with that. Yeah. But then he finds like a little, those flowers that you put in your lapel and it squirts water. He finds one of those, but he finds that when he sort of squeezes it, there's sort of some sort of electricity goes on around it. And briefly, there's sort of almost like a shimmering image of some other place or some other thing. And, he goes, yes, I'm going to hide this. And he grabs it and he runs off and back to his home. And so the inciting incident here is, as the audience, we go, okay, so he's discovered some piece of technology which has shown him like we don't know what it has shown. It's like a bit like the MacGuffin light in Pulp Fiction. They open the briefcase, don't know what's in there, but it shines light on everyone. Everyone wants it. It's the same sort of thing. This thing, there's technology, a bit of electricity, and a glimmering thing that he's sort of seen, and he's gone off with it. And he's so that's the inciting incident. So now as the audience we go, oh, he might be able to do something. Is he going to get revenge? Is he going to prove everyone wrong and come up with like the best prank ever? Yeah. Or is it going to take a darker turn? We're not sure. Yeah. He takes down, but he's got a debate, and the debate I think will come in when his friend, flatmate, it's going to be, comes back from job interview. Got job interview. He's working at McHappy Town Burgers. And he goes, well, it's just a stepping stone. How did you go? How was the gig? Are you still doing your clown thing? And it's at this moment here, he's got to make that decision. He's holding this magical, this technology that he's found, and he's thinking about his future. Does he reveal it? Does he chuck it out? Does he go with it? And of course, in order to go into Act 2, he goes with it. And so he says to his mate, check this out. Yeah. This is going to make me famous.
Yes. And so then Act 2.
Act 2.
So he does it, and it does. His friend loves the performance. He puts on this pin,
Yes.
and it makes him a super clown. Like,
Yeah,
it makes him funny. It
like
makes him cheery. It basically just amplifies everything he wished for.
Yes.
And as the performer. So the fun and games now is, of course, he shows his friend. His friend thinks it's like the best performance he's ever done. He tells someone else. He books a gig. The gig goes really well.
The gig's at McHappy Fun Time Burgers,
he
of
kind
course.
of
That's
gets
how
him
he
in.
gets it in
He
there.
kind of gets him in there, and first people are like another clown, but then they really love this performance because of it's not him, it's this glow. It's this extra
it's almost
thing.
like a sort of hologram.
Hologram thing. So it's not like
success.
he's just a clown. So he's doing that, and then that people talk about that, and he wants to be booked, and then maybe we have, because all this is the fun and games. This is the trailer, as an audience, where on the ride he's a clown that's got a special emelet bracelet thing that kind of gives him a super clown power.
And
super clown. There
clearly,
we go.
we would have some really good gags in here.
Yeah.
Because we'd hint at them in the trailer. You don't want to show the actual gag in the trailer, but you'd hint at a couple of these sort of funny things, and you'd have at least one good set piece, which is going to be that one that everyone's like talking about.
That's
There's
right.
got to be something there where someone does something. I'm not tremendously funny myself, so I wouldn't know what they'd do, but it would be funny.
We're just pitching the story here, sorry. But then, so the stage gets bigger and bigger and bigger and large, and the audience gets larger and larger, and he's flashed across front pages of newspapers, so he's getting his fame and all these sorts of things. And as I said, the audience gets bigger, and he could even be tested. You could throw a test in there where someone in the audience, maybe from clown school, boos him,
Heckles him,
but he doesn't surrender to that. He actually, with this emelet, makes it part of the act and overcomes it. Right.
Yes.
And so, it's a great, this is an all upbeat fun and game. So he's heading towards what we'd say is a midpoint, the false victory. So by the time he gets to the midpoint, he's achieved that goal that he kind of had at the start. And so then at the midpoint, he thinks he's win. We've got to now have it kind of turn a bit upside down.
I think his fame, maybe the fact that he's being splashed around, somebody recognizes this technology.
Yeah.
It's like they see the lapel flower, and there's like, I'm thinking like they go, oh, that's where that's gotten off to. That was, stolen from this spacecraft.
Yes.
Like, there's a secret tech lab. Maybe we don't even know what it's stolen from, but secret tech lab for some reason has this piece of technology. And it got taken by, a thief, one of these naughty people that want to get this technology out there, and he's ended up with it. So now he gets targeted. So while he's preparing for that gig, the victory gig, it turns out that, he's just starting up, and then like the fire alarm goes off and the sprinklers come down, and that kind of shorts out his little tech, and everyone has to evacuate, and it just totally ruins his big thing. And that's where someone tries to capture him, and he has to run for it.
Yeah. And I would say that the tech no longer works.
Yeah,
so
it's a bit glitchy.
And so he's cornered by this thief or whatever, so we're heading to sort of bad guys closing in. So the show's been a disaster. These guys are catching up to him. He doesn't know who they are. There's also maybe then the people that design the tech don't want to hurt him. They just want to get the tech back. And so it's kind of all culminating. And when he gets cornered, he thinks, I can put on a performance to get myself out of here. But the tech doesn't work.
It fails. And
it fails on him. And so
maybe he even tries to fall back on his clown training, but because he'd just been relying on the tech, he had nothing.
He actually doesn't have it, really, right? And they all laugh at him and just take the tech away.
They laugh at him, not with him.
Not with him, And so he's kind of kicked to the curb, basically.
Oh, no, these thieves get it.
At the same time, that opportunity could have been like, your show was a disaster. The fire alarm went off and everyone got wet. But that's okay. We'll put on another show. The biggest promotion in town. We'll put you on in front of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be the biggest gig of your lifetime. Be national, televised, whatever, right? And he's like, I can do that, but he doesn't have the tech.
No.
So, he's got this now. He's got this big gig coming up, but he doesn't have the tech. So what's he going to do?
No. Well, one thing, he thinks he catches one of these thieves. He thinks
Oh.
so. He's chasing after it. But in fact, no, the guy he catches is actually one of the researchers who also doesn't have it.
Yes.
And he really wants to get it back because he's in trouble.
Yeah.
Because he's the one who lost it and he's trying to get it back before he gets
Yeah.
fully found out. He's been delaying. And so we do get a brief up period there where we think, oh, he's going to do it. And then it turns out, actually, he's just found someone who's in just as bad a place as he is.
The researcher actually explains that this tech keeps the Earth rotating.
Oh, no.
And so they really just need it back. You know, like he's sure, great. It makes his performance the best thing anyone's ever seen. But if we don't get it back on the satellite, the Earth's
It's actually the performance of some scientist who's, it's enhancing his physics equations and his knowledge to save the Earth.
to save everyone.
Yes.
So what's more, your career, your little, performance, or the actual planet?
And at this stage, he's kind of thinking, my performance.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So he devises a plan with the researcher. Hey, well, this is what gets us into Act 3. You know where the bad guys are or where they might be. I really want this thing. I can help you. You can't really get anyone else to help you because you lost this thing without your boss knowing. The planet's only got another day of rotation left in it. Let's go get it together.
Yeah. And so he actually digs up some of his old original material.
Yeah.
That he'd been sort of trying, but he's a bit rusty on it, but he figures, okay, well, I reckon there's some gold in here. So what I'll do is I'll go and I'll distract the bad guys with my amazing comedy because I'm pretty funny. While you sort of sneak around and get this device.
And you know what would be nice in there is a little moment where he kind of is like, oh, I don't know how to help you. I mean, I can come help you. And then he kind of accidentally trips over and the researcher's like, that's really funny. Like he finally gets someone that thinks it's funny.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, I could do some more like that. Yeah, you do more tricks like that.
And this is Act 3, is this gathering the
Act 3.
resources and they come forward to try and enact their plan. They're going to go in there and he starts the
comedy routine.
Because the bad guy has a nightclub. Oh, yeah. Of course. So he goes in there and manages to, just sneak in past the security guards and he goes on unplanned, unannounced, and people go,
on stage.
Okay, I guess this must be the next comedy act. And the actual comedy act's sort of in the back there trying to, get himself done up and then he starts hearing the show going on. He goes, what?
Yeah.
And so this is where he starts trying to do his comedy routine. And at first, it seems okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of laughs.
Yeah, he then goes and tries one of his jokes, which, is maybe it's a bit dated. It's sort of, the funny thing that about women drivers is the audience goes dead silent.
Yeah. And then he tries the water in the flower spout.
And he goes, is you should be courteous to them. Hey, waka, waka, waka. He tries something and everyone's just like, what the hell is this guy's? Yeah, go back to the 90s, fella. Yep. Take your jokes back to the 90s. They want it. And Chris Rock sort of walks off sad looking, oh, I was going to do the whole, what white guy look like when he's dead. Oh, okay. But yeah, and so we get this hiccup because you can't have the plan just go off.
Yeah.
So as he's kind of getting negative feedback from the audience here, the guy trying to sneak in to get the device suddenly finds that the people have lost interest and they're coming back and he's
caught.
He's there, one hand on the device as a guy comes on in. Just then, we have to get the turnaround.
Yeah.
We've got to get the new comedy, the old comedy guy who was supposed to come on, comes running onto the stage to grab the mic off, Clown.
Yeah.
But Clown sort of wrenches the mic back and smacks himself in the face, stumbles backward and falls on his bum, where he happens to have a horn. It goes as he falls down. Suddenly
grabs everyone's attention.
Suddenly everyone goes, "What the hell? I haven't seen this sort of slapstick in forever."
Yeah.
And he stands up, and the comedian fellow he's tussling with sees what's happening as well, and then goes and dumps a bucket of the ice water on his head from off stage, and they continue this sort of weird slapstick routine, which then of course gets the
Everyone
attention
starts
back.
Laughing.
Guy steals back the item, but he has to escape because he steals it, but he gets chased. It's a very tight scene.
You know what? I reckon that within his performance, he has to also steal the amulet. Do you know what I mean? The performance is so good that he might go into the audience and the big boss man's there of the nightclub, and he starts doing his comedy with him in the audience, and everyone's laughing.
They're walking the guy who's recovered it.
Yeah.
He got caught and he's being walked out through the audience.
Yeah.
Clown comes off stage, does a whole comedy act.
With him to kind of sneak and gets the amulet. And
we've got to have that moment where he has the amulet and he thinks about activating it.
Yeah.
He's not sure if it's going to work or not. He's got to do that.
And it starts to glow.
But
he shuts it down.
He shuts it down, he turns around and he pulls off one last little caper.
Yeah. And escapes out of the club.
And they escape.
Yeah.
And there we go. Like, we don't really have to see it go off to save the world.
No. Well, you could just give it, and he just gives it over to the researcher.
Hands it over the guy.
Because that's pretty much
the guy wanders off.
Yeah.
And then we're left, the opening image was sort of, he was in his lecture theatre. And we can have the closing image. He can sort of walk over and sort of stand by a desk, put his hand on it off stage and sort of look glum. He's like, oh, great, well, that was just like the best of my career, but how do I do it? And the other comedian who was supposed to go on, he tussled with him, comes up and says, "Hey,
we could be a duo.
This is a thing."
Yeah.
And they sort of look at each other, jump up, high five,
and pies fall down.
And the high fives miss, and they slap each other in the face and fall over backwards. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So there we go.
And the audience could laugh, right?
But that's it. And that's a closing image, which is kind of it. It shows something much like the opening image, but it gives us the growth. Yeah. So he's found out that what he really needs is stop trying to come up with pranks and so forth. Do pratfalls.
Yes.
And he needed a partner.
Yeah.
Because trying to do it all on his own wasn't working.
Which we could flesh that out a bit more. Some of his negatives earlier, like that's the thing, maybe he would have been nasty to the other people in the class, and maybe even someone was offering to be his partner and he was like, no.
Yeah.
The best comedians are solo. You know what I mean? Like there could be a little bit of extra meatiness there in those opposites. So, but that is the 3-act structure as demonstrated through the sad clown.
The sad clown.
Or whatever.
That's what the movie's going to be called. Not the Joker.
The golden amulet or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is the 3-act structure. So let's apply that same structure to Killer Klowns and see where they came up. So this film starts a lot like, you really need to think about this film like The Blob, Body Snatchers, any alien invasion film. It's pretty the Independence Day. I mean, it's a similar type of story. So what we're going to then expect is, a small town, people living their daily lives. They're in the setup. We need to see who are those key characters. So at the setup here, we've got, there's a couple of main young Mike and Debbie. We've got those brothers. I can't quite remember their name off the top of my head.
You've got the various other sort of teens. The guy with a really recognisable glasses.
Yeah.
Because you find the glasses later.
The glasses smashed up. And then the sheriff, as we talked about before, John Vernon, the sheriff, he's just pissed off at every teenager that he comes across.
Bloody kids.
So the setup is basically that, it's like, typical American youth in a small country town. There's nothing to do.
So it's a jumping Friday night, though.
Yeah, and it's a Friday night happening. Sheriff pulls in a couple of college kids for drinking wine, a couple of punks. And I think they do say that line back. They're like, hey, there's like nothing really to do. We're we're not bothering anyone. We're just here.
We live in the town. We're just walking through.
Yeah.
And, this opening and setup is almost identical to The Blob.
Yeah.
So they're at make-out point.
Yep, make-out point.
And we,
various couples.
We get the save the cat here because these, Mike. It is Mike Tobacco and Debbie Stone. I'm just where they come up with that from. But Mike and Debbie are up there at make-out point, but they're not getting too heavy.
No.
In fact, he sort of kisses her and then rolls over and they talk.
Yeah.
Which is much like in The Blob where the I can't remember his name is, but Heston, was it? No. Who's the?
It's not Steve McQueen.
McQueen. That's it. McQueen is kind of a bit awkward and goofy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going, they're at make-out point, but they're not the bad teens.
No.
Because they're actually sort of talking and they're getting on.
They're looking at the stars.
Yeah. It's kind of just a fun night. And then instead of, in the Blob, it was the drag race.
Yep.
And in this one here, it's the ice cream van.
Yes.
Comes along, and these Terenzi brothers who are like goofy and dopey, and they're trying to sell the ice cream, and they get basically told to go away.
Yeah.
But even that, Mike is like, they're so, they're just
so
funny.
silly.
If you want a good time, you hang out with them. I like them, which kind of saves him. Again, he's not like a mean bully or anything.
No.
He was actually having a bit of a laugh with these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. And then, of course, the cop rolls through and catches a couple of punks. And, and you get that whole setup where you got the bad cop and then the good cop.
Yeah.
Who's the younger one who's like, we should be doing the right thing and you got to do this by the book. And, again, that's the Blob.
Yeah, and it's save the cat for him, isn't it? It's telling you, he's the good cop. The old cop's just kind of, not necessarily a super nasty cop, but he's just the old school type.
He's grumpy and he doesn't like damn kids.
Damn hooligans. And anyway, Debbie and the others in particular notice this meteor come over the top, flash down, crash landing. Again, very similar to the Blob. And then they talk about going to chase after it.
Well, instantly here we cut to the old dude with his dog, which that has to be a direct reference to the Blob.
I think it is that,
because this is the
it's
exact...
a Farmer Joe.
Exactly the Blob. The old guy sees the thing crash down and goes investigates.
Yeah.
Except this guy, he looks at him and goes, "What in tarnation?"
He really...
Well,
really
I'll be
went over-
hornswoggled.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, we're going to have lots of visitors here, Jesse," or whatever, to his dog. And
and he for some reason he takes like a billy can on a spade over his shoulder, prospecting style, walks off into the like this. If this was not them going directly, hey, yes, we've seen the Blob. Just in case you're wondering, we've seen the
because
Blob.
it is an old man that on a farm porch goes out. What in damnation is that? And goes off looking for it, and of course touches the Blob. And and this is what this guy does. He goes and he discovers this
circus tent.
Lit up circus tent. It's pretty cool, actually. It's not just a circus tent. It's like neon lights, and lots of fairy lights kind of anchoring it down to the ground. So it's a really cool look, and he sort of navigates it, and you can't see where the entrance is either. And what's a really clever effect here is then as he's walking, you see a shadow of a clown, but on the inside.
Yes.
Yeah, like kind of stalking him. And is it that a part of the tent sort of zips and the dog gets sucked in?
A big net catches the dog, pulls it in.
Pulls him in, the dog's gone.
And this guy punches the wall, but it's really hard.
Yeah, that's
it's not a tent. He goes, I'm going to rip this place apart. And then he grabs the line, gets electrocuted. It's just the whole thing. And the clown comes out then.
Yes.
And shoots him with a ray. And we don't really see what happens.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so it's pretty funny because it was Halley's Comet, which in 88... Was it 87 or 88 that Halley's Comet came past?
It was around that era,
yeah. Like I remember going out and trying to have a look at it and can't see Jack.
Yeah.
But I looked.
We all looked.
So there you go. 75 years' time, it'll come back around and I'll be like 90 or something or 80 something. Anyway, who knows? I won't care then either. but yeah, so Mike Tobacco, Mike and Debbie come are looking, and they find the tent, and this is kind of the the inciting incident here.
It is, yeah,
because
totally.
that first bit there was just establishing some of the rules, some of the things, like some of the characters, and the fact that this tent is dangerous, but we still don't really know what the movie's going to be about until Mike and Debbie come across it, and they're going to they investigate, and they go in and they they press some of the buttons that goes eventually they come and they see this great big chamber with power supply, and they're going, is this a missile silo or a nuclear reactor or something? And then they find the fairy floss and the popcorn, and they pull one of the fairy floss open, and there's a dead guy there.
Yes.
And so
I think they go, oh, that's old man so and so.
Yeah, old man Withers from the amusement park. And I think this is where they go, oh, we have to basically warn the town.
Yeah.
And this is, as the audience, you go, okay. So now they're going to be trying to warn the town while the clowns are wreaking havoc. Will anyone be warned in
And they're
time.
spotted by the clown who shoots the sticky popcorn.
The popcorn gun at him. Yes.
So some of it gets stuck on them.
Evidently, that was the most expensive prop at $7,000. It was actually fired popcorn.
There we go.
So, which I don't know, it seems expensive. Like they could have just thrown popcorn because most of the popcorn was coming from off screen.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure they were throwing popcorn as well.
Why they spend $7,000 on getting a gun design that would shoot popcorn? I don't know.
So, and as they're chased off, that's what we talked about. The balloon dog. It's really cool. One of the clowns comes out and he creates a balloon dog, but the dog's alive. Like an alive balloon dog sniffs after them and all that. And I think that makes it a little bit more serious, doesn't it? And there's a great shot here where they escape, Debbie and Mike. But there's a great I really liked this shot because you basically see them disappear in their car. They hop in their car and I think they run. One hops on the bonnet and they fall off. They keep running. But the shot is then the guy that fell off the car. He stands up and in the foreground it's him. Background it says the town's name, and then he starts walking down the road, and then you just have one clown after another, all kind of coming down sporadically, and they just hold that shot maybe for 30 seconds, and it's just such a great, I think, taking us to the next kind of key bit in the story because it's like, oh, okay, here is the story.
Yeah,
small town. Aliens have landed. They're killer clowns, and now they're coming to town.
We're getting into Act 2 because Debbie and Mike made their decision to try and save people, rescue the town.
Yeah,
and then
the
of course,
clowns are coming.
Act 2, the promise of the premise is the clowns descending on the town. It's not just one clown.
No,
it's a whole
variety,
gaggle of a whole clan of killer clowns.
And the filmmakers here, they show us these clowns like there's a really tall big one, there's kind of a chubby one, there's a little smaller one, there's a whole variety of sizes.
Yeah,
and I love that as well.
Yeah, it made them sort of, I suppose, have little characters. And in Act 2, we do it fun and games quite literally.
Yeah.
Where we just we cut between Mike trying to convince the police to take him seriously.
Yep.
Old Mooney is like, yeah, clowns. And even the young cop's sort of like, okay, I'm kind of a little bit
this is a bit
off
too far
on this, but you said that you saw dead people.
Yeah, so we should investigate.
I've got to investigate that.
Yeah.
Because,
well, what if you...
There's only, maybe the other stuff is kind of you being a little bit wacko.
Yeah.
But we can't just go, oh, you're dead people, whatever, and forget about it. So, they go off. But we cut them between that and the clowns clowning around.
That's right.
They come with pizza delivery and little candygram.
Yeah.
And in the pharmacy, just sort of knocking bottles. They're just clumsily going through, and the pharmacist, poor old man Myers, is sitting there going, oh my, oh. and what's the clown pretends to be like the animatronic gorilla statue out the front, and
there's hooning down the highway next to someone
in a mime car.
Yeah, in a mime car.
So it's an invisible car. You can see headlights, and that's kind of pretty cool. And
and it's funny, isn't it? This is where fun and games is a really good example of the tone of the film because they kind of zap people. But in this sequence of scenes, it's not like they're zapping people and, blood's being splattered all over a room, or, they're not zapping people automatically into those things. So there's kind of a bit of tongue-in-cheek with these. It's almost like they could be pranks.
Yeah.
Whereas later, once you hit past the midpoint, that's when things get more serious.
Yeah.
So here it is more the fun of, like, what if killer clowns came to your front door, Yeah.
Yeah,
and we have the clown at the burger joint.
Yes. That was honestly very creepy.
Luring the little girl.
I could see that one being quite scary.
And this is what I mean. It kind of started. So you had that, and he also had the bikies. Who that one sort of he comes down his little truck, and then he's like, you want to fight, and of course he stands up to him and he knocks his head off.
Yeah, someone says, "Oh, he's going to knock your block off."
Yeah,
and you kapoong,
and he actually does.
It flew off,
decapitated,
and they all ran for it, of course.
Yeah.
But you see them later on at the burger joint, just hanging out.
Yeah,
you're like, your mate just had his head punched off. like his head was. It's not like he got punched in the head and he broke his neck. No. His head was punched off.
Yeah. I loved that.
Oh, dear me.
And so I think Mike and Dave go up looking
Yeah.
and they don't find
the
thing. So
circus tent.
the circus tent, the spaceship, and so they drop Debbie off. Debbie women should go home and be safe, but yeah, they go see they can't find the spaceship. So then he arrests Mike. And he goes back to town. And then on the way back, this is where they see that scene you were talking about before, that this one clown's doing shadow puppets to these people waiting on a bus stop and then swallows them whole. So that was a really cool idea.
I love that. That shadow puppets crack me up as well, because he's doing the little bunny rabbit and the whatever, and then he sort of moves his hand around and shows up, and it's the crossing of the Delaware, of a whole boat full of people. There's no way you think it.
No.
Anyway, that's just a little gag.
It's a little gag there,
But I had to laugh at that they actually did that.
So I think Mike believes... Sorry, the cop, Dave, believes Mike now because he sees the shadow puppet do its thing. And
this is where I think we're moving into the midpoint here, because now they call Mooney, and Mooney has been just ignoring everyone, thinking the whole town is trying to drive him out of his job.
Yep.
And I love that earlier in the town, earlier on he said, no one's going to make a
mockery out of me.
A dummy.
Dummy.
Dummy out of me. And of course, a clown walks in the police station, and he said it gets a little bit more serious here, because the clown, we don't see what happens, but when Mike and Dave turn up and they find all the funny footprints everywhere, or maybe it's just footprints. Dave there, but anyway. And then, of course, there's the clown sitting on the desk stool chair, office chair, with Mooney, who's looking a lot like a puppet, a dummy, like who says, don't worry, Dave, we just want to kill you. Which, of course, is now this, as I said, previously it could have sort of been they were a bit comical.
Yeah, it was a bit comical.
And people were just being turned to candy canes, fairy floss, whatever that stuff's called. But then he pulls a bloody hand out from the back of the chief and pushes him over. And now this is actually
serious.
They said something, they're going to kill us, and they've just killed someone properly. Yeah. So I think that's sort of that midpoint now where you're no longer just sort of having the fun and games, but it's serious now.
Yeah, and Debbie kind of has a shower and she's tossed this popcorn off, and you see it, as it says, I really liked that. The popcorn moves. It must have been stop animation for the era, and the popcorn kind of stretches. It's very much like a caterpillar sort of style. That I found actually quite creepy. And anyway, then when she gets out of the shower and dries up, and the hamper is like these popcorns, I guess they're growing into the clowns, I suppose, maybe. Yeah. But they're kind of like snake-like creature, weird, creepy beak face things. So again, and they try to attack her, and bite her. They've got big teeth. And she just narrowly, I think, knocks one out, so and maybe squishes a couple down.
At least 2, maybe 3 movies, I think, being referenced here. One of them is Psycho.
Yep.
Whenever you have a shower scene, it's a reference to Psycho, without a doubt. You just can't. I don't know how you would film a shower scene like in a horror film without it immediately being Psycho. Yeah. But what I really liked about this is she reaches up and grabs the shower curtain, and we get a quick shot of the shower curtain being ripped off the rings, which is Psycho, isn't it? Yeah. Except she's done it to throw over the monsters to escape. So that's nice. The other one is the critter comes out of the toilet. Yeah. And we're talking about Ghoulies. I think Ghoulies was the one with it.
I think Gremlins does that, actually.
The toilet, Gremlins,
Gremlins does it.
Toilet monster comes out of the toilet. Gremlins does it, but I think it's either Critters or Ghoulies. One of those two has something come out of the toilet.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the washing hamper. Which is, like I mentioned basket case before with monster in the basket. So there's kind of this, I'm pretty sure they've just gone, hey, let's do,
grab all the moments.
We're aware that we're being sort of silly, and all of these bits. And I really loved the shower curtain bit where she ripped it off, because it was just that quick shot, and I went, yep, that's it. That's Psycho right there.
So she escapes. Mike and Dave rock up.
Well, she doesn't escape. She tries to escape. But she finally gets cornered, and she's, for some reason, put in a balloon.
Yeah, she is. That's right. She's cornered by the clown then. The clown, that's right. And she's put into a balloon, which is different to the other ones. And that's right. Then Mike and Dave, they come across, again, this is more serious now, is that people have been turned into those
cocoon
things on the street. So you start to sort of see the picture. So the clowns that came into town that were doing all the pranks, that were turning everyone into the cocoons. And then now we have these clowns on a big sort of vacuum sweep up thing, and they're sucking up those.
Yeah, it's suddenly becoming, this is a real operation.
This is a massive operation. And also wow, they've really wiped out the town. And and then they come across, that's right, they come across the Tenzi brothers or whatever they're called again in their ice cream van.
Ice cream van, yes.
Which has a clown on the top of it.
Yes.
Which it's had it the whole time, but it became a bit more noticeable now. And they realise that Debbie is in the balloon. They must see that, right?
Because you see her bang against the side of it.
And so they try to chase after this kind of clown car.
But Dave is chasing him too in his police car with a siren going.
That's right.
And the Trenzi brothers being silly. They go, oh, better pull over, better stop. And they slam on the brakes. And the cop car hits the back and the engine smoke comes up. So you know that the cop car's out of it. Yes. Which is great because now the only thing they can chase it in is this ice cream truck.
And it's not as fast
as
it's
useless.
A spaceship or whatever it is. They lose them, and it's great because then you see them rock up at this amusement park. And as you said, the security guard's like, hey, what's going on here, boys?
What are you doing with those pies?
What are you doing with those pies, boys? And he just gets slammed. And so here we're heading into almost the end of Act 2 because then Mike and Dave and the Tenzi brothers are like, well, you know, where do you think she is? And they're like, well, maybe the old amusement park kind of thing. And so they go, well, we need to go there. And this is where they get there and they're having that discussion. I think Dave says, well, we should talk to them and rationalise with them. And so this is the thing, they've got a plan. Is like, let's go in, save Debbie. We've got to confront these things. And I think, does the Tenzi say, well, what happens when they don't talk? And he says, well, we shoot them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, yeah.
Because does he know about the clown? No, he does. He shot that clown in the nose in the police station.
That's right, yeah.
Yes, and its nose, of course, how do you kill a clown? You pop its nose.
Pop its nose, yeah.
And then it spins around and explodes in confetti or something crazy. Yes. So, they're going in there and they're engaging in their plan. And they find Debbie. There's a bit of a close call and they get Debbie out.
Yeah, and they do find that clown drinking.
Yes, that's the
sort of idea is that, okay, well, it's obviously eating the humans or whatever.
Yeah, they're consuming us. That's kind of the answer to why they're here. Yeah. And
with one of those ridiculously curved, twirly straws. It takes forever to drink from.
And it takes ages for the camera to move its way up this ridiculous straw as slurp, and just to increase that sort of horror, I suppose it is. Yeah. And they get chased by the clown. So this is still the plan looks like it's working.
Yes.
But then they get caught in this room. They go through all these little doors and they come out and they go, oh, we're kind of stuck here.
Yeah, we're surrounded by
clowns. And the ice cream van comes smashing in.
Yeah. And
that kind of stuns them for a moment. They think, oh, great, we got out. But then the great big clown, and
it was called Jojo the Clownzilla.
The Clownzilla comes down and starts smashing into this ice cream truck.
Now, if you watch this closely, this is some special effects mastery here because it's very similar to something like Power Rangers.
Yeah.
You have a guy in a costume, but he's been shot, so he looks a lot bigger. So the way the camera angles are, when he gets the ice cream truck is just like a cardboard cutout.
Yeah. And
he picks it up and throws it across the room, you know. So they've masterfully cut between the real ice cream truck and this cardboard cutout, you know.
It's quite a good fake little truck.
Yeah.
Like it's quite convincing as a right sort of scale. And
it blows up.
It blows up with the Trenzi brothers inside. And then Dave says, Mike, Debbie, get out of here. I'll get him. And he shoots a couple of the clowns, but he's run out of bullets, and Clownzilla picks him up, and you get this nice sort of special effect of the dolly getting picked up.
And Mike and Debbie run out, and they're kind of running out of the amusement park, and they see all these cop cars coming towards them, so they're sort of got into safety, right?
Yeah, but Dave is still behind these generic names. Dave is still being, about to be crushed, but
squeezed to death.
He sees his police badge, because he believes in his police badge, and he pulls it out and
by the power of Grayskull,
pops the clown's nose, which causes Clownzilla to explode.
Yeah,
and the whole circus tent, of course, explodes.
Yeah,
and confetti is,
Sprayed all
down,
around.
and then you hear when a clown card drops out.
Yeah.
And of course, for some reason, the Terenzi brothers and Dave get out.
Yeah. So
And
they're
it's
okay.
not really like in the Terenzi brothers, we hid in the ice cream, freezer.
That's fine, but how'd you get in the little escape pod?
Yeah, okay, well, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just kind of, and that's when they look up the sky and says, do you think that's the last we'll see of them? And of course, pies.
They get pied.
And that's where we end.
That's the end.
Yeah, so it's the, I suppose the opening image was teens trying to find a way to have fun.
Yeah.
And the closing image is, I think you've had all the fun you can have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pied in the face.
Pied in the face. That's it. It's done.
The end.
The end. So it's quite a bit of a silly romp. One that I still want to know how that pitch meeting goes.
Yeah.
How, because
How'd they sell
they're
that?
going, okay, we want scary clowns. And people are going, oh, yes, Stephen King, it. Everyone knows clowns can be quite frightening because they're supposed to be funny, but they could be scary. And, okay, they're aliens. Okay, I can still see that. Yep, some sort of not... Why are they clown aliens? Are they actual clown aliens? No, the aliens just happen to look like clowns.
Yeah, right.
And so you can imagine the producers still going, okay, so they probably won't literally look like clowns. They'll just have, features that in silhouette could be...
these could be clowns.
Yeah, and there's I don't know. And then they've got a balloon dog and a popcorn gun.
But right, my but to you is, of course, like anything, as we said, when this came out, late 80s, we've had a whole bunch of those other films.
Oh, yes.
Right, so we've had Critters and we've had Gremlins and we've had Creatures of the Deep. We've had, Raiders of the Lost Ark, kind of that type of, journey into the unknown. We've had Alien, the real serious stuff. And then at the same time, they might have been pitching this more like, it's like Porky's, but killer clowns.
Yeah,
it's like Critters, but they're killer clowns. It's like Goonies, but they're killer clowns. It's Friday the 13th, but a little bit younger. They're killer clowns, and so the producers
meant to be funny.
Yeah, and they might be like, well, yeah, we haven't. We've had little furry creatures, and we've had toad-like creatures, and we've had the scary big alien creatures, and we've had Predator, and okay, and we've had the serial killer with the axe thing. All right, yeah, why don't we try a clown? Let's try clowns.
Let's try it.
Yeah, you could almost, the rise of AI right now, right? You could almost say, AI, write me a sci-fi horror comedy, and an AI might go, killer clowns, because it's it hasn't been done, right? It's almost like that. You could imagine them in the opposite, which is oh, hey, yeah, I've got a great idea for a movie. It's going to be these little furball things. It's already been done.
Mm.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, what if it's a scaly kind of dinosaur creature? It's already been done.
Yeah.
What if it's a warrior? No, it's already been done. You got to give us something that hasn't been done. All right, clowns that are aliens. Oh, okay, you've got my attention.
Yes.
And I want them to be totally clowns. So the spaceship is a circus tent and their dog is a balloon dog.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? Something, actually, when this closed and the credits rolled, I sat there and I thought, at what point did special effects change? Because I know that action films pivoted on the Matrix.
It's Jurassic Park.
And that's what I came up with as well.
It's 100%
Jurassic Park is where special effects pivoted from, that style. Because even we're talking about Predator, for example, Alien.
So Jurassic Park is the beginning of computer special effects in movies.
Yeah.
So anything before, which I think Jurassic Park's 92, 93.
Yeah.
So anything before that, there is some computer special effect movies and bits and bobs. But when you start to talk about now what is in a movie where people are thrown upside down and they could be murdered by nothing, right?
Yeah.
An alien would just be total. These clowns would probably be digital now, right? So Jurassic Park is that film that did that.
And that's the point I came up with, because I was thinking at the same sort of time we had, I said Alien was about 10 years ago that.
Yeah.
But Aliens, the sequel, was 86, I think it was. And we had, I said, Predator and Terminator and I'm trying to think of I think there was probably Total Recall. Was that 92 or 80?
Sounds about 92.
80 something, but that was, all of that sort of special effects is that same sort of thing, very practical.
Yeah, practical.
Some green screen type stuff and some claymation type stuff.
And that's why the costumes are so great in this, because that's where they put all the money,
In 93, dinosaurs came alive. And then after that, like that was just a pivot, and suddenly you could make. I remember there's a whole bunch of movies came out. First of all, just a whole heap of dinosaur movies came out because they just bought the same dinosaurs, basically. So give us them, and went
you
for
spent
it.
2 years making them. Okay, yeah, we'll buy them off you.
Yeah, well, I said, we'll license them. Why not? So I thought it was just interesting to see that. Yeah, you get these pivotal moments in these movies because The Matrix was where action films changed.
Yep.
And because I was watching Blade, Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
So Blade 1 was 89? No, 90.
Yeah, I was going to say that must be in the 90s, eh?
It was just before The Matrix.
Okay.
So it was 98 or something.
Yeah, because Matrix is 99.
It was 98. And so Blade 1, you're sort of watching it going, and it was sort of heading in that sort of direction because it was based off a comic book. And Matrix was heavily inspired by manga and anime and comic books as well. But then Blade 2 came along, which is a year after The Matrix. And you could see it was Blade, but you could see it was The Matrix.
Influenced by The Matrix.
Yeah, they went, okay, so now the fight scenes, we're going to change them up a bit.
Yeah.
They threw in some more computer animation in the fight scenes to get the acrobatics going. And it was just, it was that Blade 1 and Blade 2 is just, because they hinge one either side of the Matrix, you can just see the effect that happened because they would have been in probably either fully towards the end of production or in post-production when Matrix hit the cinemas. And they would have had to look at that and go, well, we've got to do something.
We have to be as good as that.
Yeah, we've got to change the stuff here because this is a bit lame. Let's, less costuming, more, acrobatics and pizzazz. And so, you see movies like this. And then after Terminator 2, because that was like that liquid metal stuff, and then Jurassic Park, no movie was able to go back to purely practical. There had to be some element of graphics in there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. Anyway, but so let's talk about then our ladder. So our ladder has got a lot of movies on it. So we like to look at this as a way of organising a viewing session or a trilogy of films.
Yep.
So tell me, what was your ladder looking like? What's your bit?
So look, I think that you could watch this with some others, like we looked at Invasion and Body Snatchers and The Blob. If you want to kind of go that way, that was one angle. But I also thought more along the lines of, I loved The Brother from Another Planet.
Yeah.
And I just thought that this Brother from Another Planet and this, they are a similar vintage. I think Brother from Another Planet's a little bit older again, but it just had some of those same quirks and traits and costumes that, I think if you watch those two films together, that would be a really great sort of viewing. If you sort of break it down over the course of a weekend, I think also Gantz
Zero.
Yes. would also be
killer,
like a kind of
killer
interesting
clowns sort of give you that
oddball
sort
with
of
Gantz Zero, the oddness of the horror, and so this film had it was much more absurd and silly than Gantz, but there is some moments here, like we said, the clown with the little kid knocking the bikies head off, those actual cocoons, like there's some revulsion in this film that also is like Gantz, I suppose, to a bit of an extreme version of the comedy, even their masks and their teeth at times, there's kind of some really cool grossness in it. So I kind of think Brother from Another Planet, more similar vintage, and again, Alien that lands here, a little bit of a different type of arc, and then Gantz just to kind of match up that, hey, this is some weird horror going on.
Here's another way of looking at weird creature horror.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I picked Ganser as well.
Oh, there you go.
Obviously, the image of those clowns, and I remember Ganser. If you haven't seen Gantz, you just hear us talking about it now, you got to go watch that.
Oh, you got to,
It's a Japanese animation.
Yeah, horror,
and
sci-fi.
It really excited my imagination. I watched it and I just thought, this is just so interesting. It's so different. Like it's
very different.
It really goes. I mean, even for anime, it's kind of a bit different.
Yeah.
I didn't go for Brother on Another Planet though. I went Paul.
Yep.
Again, an alien
Yeah, cool.
arrival.
Comedy.
But in this case, it was communication.
Yeah.
And he is a clown as such. But I liked the idea of just sort of having that other sort of view of aliens coming along.
That's
You
cool.
don't have to be afraid of them.
Yeah.
You could also be friends with them.
Yeah. Awesome. And so what's your ladder out there in listening land? Is it matching what we're talking about, or have you got different suggestions? So, yeah, let us know. Hit us up on socials. What is your ladder, or what other films would you like to watch with this film? And, yeah, send us a message. So what about Act 3 science time? Sorry,
So
what
this is
science
tough,
do you want to
isn't it?
pick out of this? Yeah.
This
Clowns?
This is tough, clowns.
Clowns are pure science.
Because I don't know, like, popcorn. I mean, popcorn's got some interesting science behind it.
yeah.
But no, I was
tasty.
interested because the mention in the film here towards the end was saying, well, maybe our idea of clowns was formed by these aliens having visited us in the past.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, that's interesting. Well, but obviously we didn't take them as horror creatures. We had converted them into these comedies, humour, which made me question, well, hang on, why do humans have a sense of humour? Like evolutionary, why is it? Because you don't see dogs making jokes.
No, that would be funny.
That would be funny. Birds can be quite intelligent, but again, they don't have stand-up comedians.
No.
They
Again,
just
that would be funny.
Yeah, and in many ways, you're sort of thinking comedy and humour is almost, it could be negative trait, because it's people are laughing out loud, might attract predators. Just wasting time coming up with comedy just sort of seems you should be surviving, right? So, but clearly humans have a sense of humour and enjoy comedy, enjoy a bit of a laugh.
We do.
Which means that those traits either didn't prevent us from surviving, or more likely they actively helped us survive. And so those people who had a good sense of humour were the ones who bred more, and so we tend to have more humour in the world. And so I thought it was quite interesting, and it turns out it is quite interesting. A number of people have done this, investigation. Where does humour come from? How old is humour? And the youngest it could possibly be is probably from the fact that some of the earliest encounters with Australian Aboriginals included the Aboriginals making jokes and laughing, which means it appears that the local Australians have a sense of humour, which is probably quite important for them.
Yeah.
You got to laugh or you'll cry.
That's right.
One of those things. But that means, of course, they've got they have been genetically isolated for, at least 35,000 years.
Yeah.
They've been continuously here for anywhere up to 60,000, depending on whereabouts in Australia you look.
Yeah.
So that's, humour is at least that old. That's a recorded, verifiable fact.
Yes.
Is that humour has been around since then. Because 35,000 years ago, that's when the connection between Australia and the rest of the world stopped. So the Aboriginals who came to Australia obviously already had a sense of humour. Going back, how far back does humour go? We don't have any other records to indicate.
Yeah.
But they have had a look at the brain cavities, the skulls of proto-humans, and had a look at their brain size. And humour resides in the frontal cortex. So, and we know this because we have studied people with brain damage and people with epilepsy and some forms of schizophrenia, which all affect various parts of the frontal cortex, which includes, the higher orders of decision-making, impulse control, and so forth. So you can imagine epileptic seizures, for example, cause scrambling of brain signals so that the body doesn't control itself properly. And they know that there's certain types of epilepsy and brain damage and schizophrenia. Those people don't have a sense of humour.
Yeah,
or they've got a very diminished sense of humour. They will be able to identify something that is supposed to be funny, but they don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like just forever not getting jokes and not coming up with jokes.
Yeah.
Well, I know, and you sort of think, whoa, okay. Yeah, that would be like you're just surrounded by people telling dad jokes all the time. Yeah, terrible. You'd be like my kids.
Yes.
They don't have a sense of humor, obviously, because I'm terribly funny and they never laugh.
I know.
They laugh at me, not with me. So maybe they do have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
But that's all really cool. So the evolutionary purpose of humor, because humor and laughter are associated, but they're not required, because you can laugh from being tickled or as a release of anxiety, which you could sort of say they're not, tickling is not something that we generally find fun.
No.
Tickling people is quite fun. But being tickled is kind of almost like
torture.
You're being attacked.
Yeah.
So it's actually, humor is actually in the brain, and it doesn't always cause laughter. As we all know, there are plenty of comedic films that I've watched and gone, Spinal Tap, for example. I watched This Is Spinal Tap. I didn't laugh out loud once.
Yep.
I found it all incredibly clever and very funny. And afterwards, talking to people, I laughed. But at the time, for some reason, I merely acknowledged its humor. So the process then by which evolution, encourages a trait is if that trait gives you the ability to breed and pass it on. So it's genetics. It gets passed on. It becomes helpful. So a number of people have come up with, ideas of what is humor, how could it be helpful, how could it be useful. And so one of these guys is this fellow, Alexander. I don't have his first name, it seems. In 86, anyway, he published his work.
One of the Skarsgards.
Yeah, Alexander Skarsgård, yes. I think his last name is Alexander. But anyway, so he was looking at this idea that humor is a way of socially advancing yourself because you're able to use it to sort of ostracize other people. You can have in-jokes, or you can use it to sort of tease people, that other people then will laugh at what you're teasing and kind of form cliques, and it'll actually form groups. So you can it's sort of a way of segregating groups or othering other people without having to be violent. And you can imagine a society that's able to form these kind of bonding and separation without killing each other. They're going to be able to survive. They'll have more children, won't they?
They will.
So, I mean...
Not the guy that you're laughing about.
It's not a really well-agreed sort of thought. So, that's minor, but it seems that's not all that common, that putting other people down, Austin. That's some types of humour. And it's certainly been used in various cultures. In America, they have this notion of the roast, which is sort of like a good nature. And I've never really kind of found them funny for the most part.
Neither have I.
Often I kind of feel it's a little bit mean, but that's the point.
Yeah.
I think so. It works for them.
Yep.
Hurrah. I suppose we sort of do it sort of roasting in Australia, but it's probably not as pointed.
No.
But anyway, there's another fellow, Weisfeld, in 93. He published his work in 93. And he has this a general humour theory that suggests humour provides valuable social information to others, while laughing provokes pleasurable feelings that positively reinforce the humorist. So in return, the humorist, the jokester, gets forthcoming reciprocation, as he says, by putting an ally in a favourable disposition. Basically, what he's saying is that humour is a way of ingratiating yourself and making yourself look good without boasting.
Yes.
So you can, because we all like the funny person. Because laughter, it releases a bit of dopamine. We get a bit of enjoyment out of it. So someone who can make other people laugh can, influence people and move ahead.
Yeah, and I think in social scenarios, it's also one of those things that if a group, like you take a workplace or even just a group of people coming together, it's a way of bonding that group. The group might not know each other that well. If someone makes everyone laugh, there's a bonding moment.
And you've been able to form a social order without violence.
Yeah, that's it.
Like you haven't had to have a fist fight to see who's the toughest.
No.
The guy who's made everyone laugh, even the big tough guy will go, yeah, he's cool.
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah.
And so that it is quite good. So one of the major theories of what humour is incongruence. So this is, and you'll look at any stand-up routine, they all do this. So the idea is you have a setup which sets in motion a certain thought or a certain context, which is usually maybe sort of a common social norm.
Yep.
And then you'll have an ending, a punchline, which flips it but still makes sense. So, you know, that's the ones where you list 3 things that are crimes. 2 of them are quite serious, and the third one is, you know, liking pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of okay. I see what you're saying. Crime, as in it's not a good taste, as opposed to a crime, which the first 2 was murder and, you know, robbery, and the third one's pineapple on pizza. And yeah, I'm sure everyone out there's laughing tremendously at this stage. But the idea here is by having humour, and that provokes a laughter, which is a positive response, which reinforces being humorous, because being humorous encourages and engages flexible thinking and flexible thought. It's a way of breaking patterns, because the humour itself is a broken pattern. So you have this strong structure, and then you break it, and in order to get it, you have to be able to understand and break yourself out of your mold. And that grows our brain.
Right.
If you're not capable of getting jokes, then it's because you're not capable of thinking in a flexible enough fashion. And you'll find that, you know, the really good stand-up comedians are very witty people. Like, they're really quick thinkers. They're not necessarily really well educated, because they may or may not have a lot of education, but they will always be able to very quickly pick up topics, talk well on something. They can flip things around, because in order to be funny, you have to have a brain that can swap contexts while retaining a linked pattern through the whole lot. So that would help us.
Yeah, for sure.
Quite a lot. You know, there's more discovered. People have gone, which came first then, language or jokes? And it's a chicken egg thing, as people are going, well, a lot of humour is from language and the concepts that can be conveyed. But then there's fart jokes.
Yeah.
Which pretty much every culture has a fart joke. Yeah. And the thought on that one there is you've got a pattern of something serious. Because you imagine the hunter, maybe they don't really talk our language, but the hunter comes back with a kill, and he's like standing all proud and looking, you know, look at the food I brought, I am the greatest in the tribe. And then he lets off a fart. Which is something you're like, okay, that's not something that's kind of, you know, smelly and a bit dirty, and that's where your poo goes. And it's a juxtaposition. But you've also just said you're the greatest and mightiest. So are you not just also expressing it? And therein lies humour, whether you've spoken or not. So there you go.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm surprised they didn't have any fart jokes in this. They had one thing come out of a toilet, but they were missing fart jokes. And some of those clowns had big booties.
They did.
It would have been... In fact, there were big boobies as well.
There was big boobies. There was that joke. Inflatable boobies, which was pretty bizarre.
Oh, no. I admit I laughed. I laughed out loud that there was these girl clowns. And when the 2 brothers came up and, you know...
They all had kisses all over them.
Yeah, and they all had kisses all over them. You're like, it's just so bad. It's just... That is Porky's. That's just the 80s all over. Revenge of the Nerds. Yeah. Don't watch that. It doesn't age well. It's a little bit rapey. Yeah.
Not in part of the consensual society that we have.
No. It's sort of... It's that time. I remember watching these films in the 80s. And in the 80s, it's kind of, she's unconscious, and he's like, you know, taking a photograph of her and kissing it. And you're like... And nowadays you look at it going, oh, that guy should probably be counselled and be taught something about consent, because this is not good for her. She's not going to enjoy this situation.
No.
But anyway, that aside,
I think those alien blow-up boobies were consensual, because the boys were stuck in the ball pit, and they came up and hopped in. So.
It was pretty much exactly what you'd expect from a girl clown. To be funny.
Yeah.
Have, you know,
boobies.
I mean, all the boy clowns had great big wobbly bottoms. And, anyway, there you go. So that's it. The science of humour. There's so much more. I really had to sort of cut down that, because it's a really fascinating topic.
Yeah, for sure.
You should get on there. There's some... It goes back to Greek philosophers and all sorts.
And it's a good connection back to this. The film doesn't go into it deeply, but it's brought up that idea of are these clowns, did these clowns kind of keep coming back to Earth and created the concept of a clown?
Well, I mean, even
so some of the way they do attack and kill people, it's funny to us because it's a clown, but maybe this is just their behaviour that then we've adapted into comedy.
Well, even I think the very concept of a clown, which is supposed to be a comedic thing, a harmless buffoon, killing people. Which, when you actually then have a look at the clown, the mask, their teeth, and they're looking quite scary, that in itself is kind of that, initial setup with one context. Here's this sort of funny, lovable buffoon. And then the next context is, no, actually, they're terrifying monsters.
Yeah, that's right.
That in itself is kind of a joke. You may not laugh at it if you're in the situation, but us on the outside, we're having a bit of a laugh at it because...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it is denying your expectation. It's making you have to think of the situation in a new light.
That's right.
But with the same facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go.
Okay, that brings us to the end of Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Let us know what you thought. Did we miss anything? Did we pick up anything? Did you learn something? Do you want to have any final comments? And hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I already said that. Any of those places. Share us around. Wherever you're listening to podcasts, make sure you do give us a review or just share it with a friend. That's another way to help us out. Just get the word out about Space Brains. If you're still making a film, there's a bit of time. Get it in, submit. And if you're in the area, you can also come to the festival. So keep a lookout on our socials because there will be more and more information about the event coming
Tickets
soon.
will be released as soon as we get all their contracts signed.
As soon as everything's locked in,
finalised.
then we'll kind of finalise the ticket sales and we'll start putting it out there. So it'd be great to see you at the festival. So let us know what you think about any of them and get in touch if you need to. Next episode is
a Korean sci-fi action cyberpunk dystopian post-apocalyptic thriller. Whew, that's a lot of things.
It is.
I've not seen it. I know nothing more except that what I just said is called, I think it's Jungle.
Yep.
JUNG_E.
Yep.
I'm assuming it's Jungle.
So it's be Jungle or Junge?
Junge. Junge is German for child.
Well, we will all find out. So go check out the movie before the podcast release so that you can follow along at home.
See ya.
Bye.